Hi, my name's Dr. Catherine Hughes from Crime Psych. In this video, I'm going to be discussing the various groups that exist within society. As I've indicated in the title, we like to become part of a social group where we all have something in common. These groups exist in all areas of our lives, and in my line of work, one group you might define as criminals. And you'd become part of this group by breaking the laws within society. Obviously, not everybody can or wants to belong to this group. Some people don't want to break the law, and so they would put themselves and label themselves as a non-criminal group. Within social psychology, the study of why people behave and interact as they do is well grounded. As humans, we form social groups with people who are similar to us in some way. We tend to exclude people that don't share those same qualities. And we can belong to many different groups at once. And we can belong to each one based on a particular behaviour, belief or ideology. So let me begin with a few brief examples. I see myself as being in a social group with my immediate family. I see members of that group as all belonging through being one of my parents or my sibling. I could extend that a little and include aunts and uncles and cousins, and this would be known as my in-group. People who don't belong to this group are considered to be the out-group, so non-family members would be the out-group. And there are hundreds, maybe even thousands of examples where this occurs within society. If you follow football, for example, you might support Liverpool, and anybody else who supports Liverpool would be in the in-group with you, and those who support all the other teams are considered to be in the out-group. Even in politics, you might support a particular party and everybody else who supports that particular party are in the in-group, and those who support different parties would be in the out-group. It can also be religion. You might consider yourself a Christian, a Buddhist, a Muslim and so on, and everybody else who believes in the same religion is in the in-group, and those from different religions are in the out-group. And you can belong to as many different in-groups as you want. For example, my in-groups might be my family, that I'm self-employed, that I'm a Christian, I'm an academic, I'm a psychologist, I'm a motorcyclist and so on. And this is based on the work of Henry Tajfel and colleagues who formed the theory called social identity theory. In 1979, Tajfel proposed that the groups which people belong to give them a sense of pride and a sense of belonging. And we divide people in the world as us or them, depending on their social group. And social identity theory has been the basis for explaining many social processes and behaviours, including crowd violence at football matches. How we categorise people depends on the immediate social setting that we're in. They may be in the out group in one context and in the in group in another. For example, take my sister, Pauline. She's in my family group, she's in my religion group, she's in my motorcycle riding in group, but she's in the out group of academics and psychologists. When we relate that to crime and criminals, when somebody takes something that doesn't belong to them, they become members of the thieves group. There's a general out group of those who don't steal, but then there are the police who actively try to stop this group of people. And this is where tensions can begin to rise. The in-group, the thieves, see the police as the out-group and will not like them very much, and that's generally putting it politely. The formation of social groups is evident in many areas of society, and it can lead to conflicts. It can be the basis for many crimes, for example, football violence, racism, terrorism. One particular amazing lady called Jane Elliott demonstrated how people discriminate against each other. Jane Elliott was a third grade teacher from America, and the day after Martin Luther King was shot, she went to her class and decided to address the problems of racial prejudice by dividing her class into groups on the basis of eye colour. On the first day of the exercise, she designated the blue-eyed children as the superior group, and she provided brown fabric collars and asked the blue-eyed students to wrap them around the necks of their brown-eyed peers as a method to easily identify the minority group. She gave the blue-eyed children extra privileges such as second helpings at lunch or extra playtime or access to more play equipment. The blue-eyed children sat in the front of the classroom and the brown-eyed children were to sit in the back rows. The blue-eyed children were encouraged to play with only the other blue-eyed children and ignore the brown-eyed children. The teacher wouldn't allow the brown-eyed and the blue-eyed children to drink from the same fountain and often chastised the brown-eyed students when they didn't follow the exercise's rules or they made mistakes. And she magnified the differences between the two groups by singling out students, and she would use negative aspects of the brown-eyed children to emphasize a point. Obviously, at the beginning of the exercise, there was resistance among the students in the minority group to the idea that blue-eyed children were somehow better than the brown-eyed children. And to counter this, Elliott lied to the children by stating that melanin was linked to higher intelligence and learning ability. And shortly after this, the initial resistance fell away. Those who were deemed superior became arrogant and bossy and sometimes unpleasant to their as-labelled inferior classmates. Their grades on simple tests were better. They were completing mathematical and reading tasks that had been seemed outside of their ability before. Whereas the inferior group of classmates, the brown-eyed children, were scored more poorly on tests, and even during the playtimes these children isolated themselves. And what Elliott found was that these children's academic performance suffered even more than what they had done previous before she labelled them as poor learners. Elliott showed how easy it was to turn 7-year-olds against each other. Since Elliott's demonstration, social psychologists have continued to highlight the causes and consequences of in-group and out-group stereotyping, and there are now thousands of studies on the topic. Some of the most recent and promising work examines the basis in the brain's circuitry of in-group and out-group processing. And one recent study was conducted at the University of Missouri, showed the effect of in-group identification becomes even more intense when people are made to feel threatened or unsafe. We turn to those who are in our in-group when we feel at risk of physical harm. And this in-group, out-group definition can be used to help to explain why some people commit various types of offences. For example, if a terrorist attacks citizens of another country, then all the other terrorists with the same beliefs from the same terrorist group will be in the in-group and the others will be in the out-group. However, things can sometimes get a little bit confusing. For example, a murderer may attack a person inside prison for being a paedophile. Although both of them are offenders, the murderer believes that the paedophile belonged to the out-group because of the nature of their crime, and this happens all the time. On a similar note, I know that most people are willing to break the law in some way, but they see offenders as bad people or as different to them. Nobody likes to have their own goods stolen from their own house, but if a person were to be offered an expensive product at a bar or by an acquaintance because it fell off the back of a lorry, then that would be acceptable to them. To use another example, murder. If a person threatens to take somebody's life, then they're sent to prison, and most people will label them as a bad person and deserved of their punishment. However, When a mother hears of a paedophile, she might say that she wishes that she could kill him herself, and a lot of other people would agree with her. My point is that offenders are not a distinct group of people who are different than the rest of us. We must look beyond the label of the crime and try to understand the behaviours and the ways in which we may be able to reduce criminality by understanding this. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something and enjoyed the video. Bye for now.